There's an old saying around here: the mountains don't keep secrets, they keep scars. They remember every battle, every betrayal, every body buried in unmarked graves. The peaks of the Great Smoky Mountains are some of the oldest on Earth, and that much time gives the land a long, deep memory. So, what if the things that died in the Smokies simply never left? Picture this. The last light of day surrenders to the Blue Ridge. Fog, heavy as a shroud, is peeling itself off the blacktop of the Cades Cove Loop. Miles away, a single flickering lantern keeps a lonely vigil outside the old Greenbrier establishment, a light for a guest who is never, ever going home. And in the dead center of a forgotten cemetery, a cold blue ball of light hovers silently above a grave that hasn't seen a flower in over a century. These aren't just campfire tales to spook the tourists. These are wounds, open wounds that refuse to close. Tonight, we're not just telling stories. We're walking into them. We're visiting 3 spots the locals still won't go alone. 3 places where the past is so present you can feel it on your skin. We're looking for the bride who never became a wife, for cemetery lights that have no earthly source, and for a cave where, according to every old story, the devil himself holds court. Come on, let's go. First stop, the Greenbrier Restaurant in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Before it was a high-end steakhouse, it was the Greenbrier Lodge, built in 1939. It was a secluded haven for wealthy hunters and vacationers, tucked away in the woods just outside of Gatlinburg. It was a place of laughter, of roaring fires, of bourbon poured neat. And in the spring of that first year, it was the place where a young woman named Lydia Jane Watkins was preparing for the happiest day of her life. The story, as it's been pieced together, is a classic tragedy. June 12, 1939, church bells rang at noon, the humid air was thick with the scent of gardenias, and Lydia Jane Watkins was left standing completely alone in an empty chapel. Her intended, a young man from Gatlinburg, never arrived. Legend says she didn't cry, she didn't scream, she simply turned and ran the 4 miles back to the Greenbrier, the same building that houses the restaurant today. Still in the wedding dress she spent months sewing by hand, she went straight to the bridal suite on the 2nd floor, locked the door, and with a piece of rope, hung herself from the rafters. The staff that work there now, they don't like to talk about it. They just say the details get fuzzy, as if forgetting is a survival skill. But the building won't let them forget. The evidence refuses to be forgotten. The beam she used is still there, now situated directly above the restaurant's bar. Some say that Lydia's story has a darker postscript. That days after her death, her fiancé's body was found in the woods, mauled by a mountain lion, an animal that hadn't been seen around there for years, leading to whispers that Lydia's avenging spirit had hunted him down. The reported encounters with Lydia are constant, woven into the very fabric of the building. A bartender, let's call him Alex, is locking up around 2:13 a.m. on a Tuesday. The restaurant is silent. Every chair is on its table. He does a final check of the security monitors in the office. On the screen for the main hallway, he sees it. Clear as day, a woman in a long white lace gown gliding past the lens. His heart seizes. He sprints to the hallway, flipping on the lights. It's empty. The footage shows her passing, but 3 seconds later, the hall is empty. There are no side doors, no closets. She just dissolves. In what was once cabin 3, now a private dining room, a guest celebrating an anniversary feels a sudden, intense chill. His wife excuses herself to the restroom. While he's alone, he hears the unmistakable sound of a shower turning on, full blast. in the adjoining suite, which has been locked and empty all night. The only key to that room is on a hook in the manager's office downstairs. And every year on the anniversary of her death, the kitchen vents exhale the distinct sweet smell of gardenia perfume, even though the flower hasn't been stocked or used in the restaurant for decades. I had the chance to eat there last fall. The place has an atmosphere, no doubt. Around 10 o'clock, as the dinner service is winding down, a jukebox that hasn't been plugged in since the last remodel crackled to life. It didn't play a full song. It just played a single mournful verse of Billie Holiday's "I'll Be Seeing You." The same song, I later learned, the wedding band had practiced the morning Lydia died. The sound was thin, warped, like it was coming from a long, long way away. When I asked the manager if this crew was playing a prank, he stopped polishing the glass and gave me a dead-eyed look. "Sure, you find the extension cord for a 1955 Seaberg with no power supply and we'll talk about it," he said. Next stop, Cades Cove, to see some glowing orbs. In the daylight, Cades Cove is a postcard from the past. You'll see deer grazing in fields of goldenrod, split-rail fences tracing the memories of old homesteads, and children running around the 11-mile loop. But when the sun bleeds out behind the peaks and the valley is plunged into an almost prehistoric darkness, it remembers what it truly is, a basin of haunted history. For many decades, park rangers and campers have reported the same impossible phenomenon. Park rangers field multiple calls yearly from people who see floating candle flames or corpse lights bobbing above the tombstones of the primitive Baptist cemetery. They're described as cold, blue-white lights hovering about 3 feet from the ground. They hold perfectly still, an unwavering pinpoint in the oppressive dark. Until you take a single step toward them, then they're just gone, vanished without a sound. The blame for this lingering energy is laid at the feet of two major tragedies that tore the cove apart. First, the Civil War. Cades Cove was fiercely pro-Union, a pocket full of abolitionist sentiment in a Confederate state. This made them a frequent target for raids. In 1864, Confederate raiders dragged 3 men suspected of being Union sympathizers to the fence of the primitive Baptist cemetery and executed them. Their bodies were buried in haste, their graves never marked. Then, in the 1930s, came the second great trauma, the creation of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The government, through the process of eminent domain, began evicting the families who had lived in the cove for generations. It was a bitter, heartbreaking process. Some refused to leave, barns were burned, shots were fired, and families were forced from the only home they had ever known. John Oliver, a lifelong resident, fought the eviction in court for years until the family finally lost. I went in the cove after hours, with permission, and set up a full-spectrum digital camera and a digital temperature probe near the old cemetery. The silence out there is a physical weight. At 1:03 a.m., the temperature plunged 7 degrees in 30 seconds. My breath plumed in the cold air, and then a light ignited. It was hovering directly over the headstone of William Tipton, a patriarch of the cove from the late 1800s. It wasn't a flicker. It was a slow, deliberate pulse, like a weak heartbeat once, twice. Then it faded, leaving an afterimage burned into my retinas. Then there was no wind, only the smell of damp earth, wet wool, and the faint, unmistakable scent of old gunpowder. The lights appear most often in late October, right around the anniversary of the final evictions. Call it foxfire, swamp gas, a coincidence. I did too, until a cold orb of light drifted so close I felt the static of it raise the hairs on my arm, and the word coincidence became meaningless, foolish even. Now, Let's go over to the Devil's Courthouse and Whiteside Mountain. There are some places on this earth that just feel wrong. They are dissonant, out of time with the rest of the world. The Devil's Courthouse, a jagged, snarling rock formation along the Blue Ridge Parkway, is one of those places. Long before the settlers arrived, the Cherokee knew this place was different. They called it Datsig Naglit Yi, which translates to the place where they judged. They spoke of a slant-eyed giant named Sukalu, a powerful being, who used a cave within the mountain to hold court. When settlers came, they misheard the stories, took one look at the menacing cliff that looks like a demonic throne, and decided the devil himself must hold court inside. The name stuck, the Devil's Courthouse. It doesn't help that the mountain has a habit of collecting people. The terrain is notoriously treacherous. Climbers report sudden, inexplicable 60-mile-an-hour downdrafts that leap from the mouth of the main cave, throwing ropes and gear sideways into the abyss. The National Weather Service has no official explanation on file for these localized, violent downgusts. The most chilling story happened in 1978. Two college students, both experienced hikers, camped below the summit. It was a clear, cold night. At around 3:12 a.m., one of them managed to get to a payphone in the nearby town of Cashers, North Carolina. He called his mother, sobbing, incoherent, screaming about something with horns standing on the trail ahead of them. The line went dead. A massive search and rescue operation was launched. They found their campsite perfectly undisturbed. The tent was zipped, sleeping bags inside. The car was locked at the trailhead, but the boys were simply erased, vanished without a trace. The Park Service officially listed them as lost, presumed dead. The locals, however, have a simpler and more terrifying explanation. The devil collected his due. So we visited 3 places, 3 wounds on the landscape that refuse to scar over. At Greenbrier, Lydia is still wearing a wedding dress, forever walking the halls and trailing the scent of perfume and a promise broken. Cade's Cove continues to hold a silent, mournful vigil for the executed and the evicted, one cold blue light at a time. And the Devil's Courthouse, the door to the cave is always open, and the ancient judge, whatever you choose to call him, is waiting for the next name to enter his ledger. These mountains are beautiful, breathtaking in the light of day, but in the darkness here is ancient, and it belongs to something else. Please leave me a comment with the place you want me to find next. And please, for your own sake, don't hike alone after dark. The trails down here have a nasty habit of forgetting to lead back.